once I get the notification that somebody, non kind of ASI is in here, then I'll do the recap. Just so I don't have to do it twice, or the introduction rather, so I don't have to do it twice.
We like it. We like it, Krishna. We're recording this.
Oh, we are. Nice. Okay. So I guess I'll do it twice. Welcome to the ASI Convo Corner, where every Thursday, the ASI execs as well as the ASI staff are on to talk to the students at large about a topic. This week's specific topic is mental health. And as such, we do have Dr. Tiffany Herbert, who is our special guest. I'll go ahead and let her introduce her, say a couple of things about herself.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. Like Christian said, I'm Dr. Tiffany Herbert. I'm a psychologist on campus in the Student Health and Psychological Services. We're located in the Student Health Center, and I've been on campus for 15 years now, and I love those hands. That's awesome. And I've been working with ASI for probably just as long as I've been on campus. And so I'm, really committed to the mission of connecting with students and building a bridge between our office and ASI. We've always had a wonderful relationship, and to offer some transparency in terms of the perspective of faculty to students and creating a dialogue between our two groups. So that's my mission here.
Cool, thank you. And then in no such order, we have Candy and Corliss joining us from the Children's Center. And then we have Stephen James, Michelle Lakey, Rashida, Jadiba, Danisha, Caitlin, and Shamshat joining us from the ASI office. And we have my other exec, Rahab Shoaib, and Makona Tandaji, the EVP, will be joining us shortly. And we also have Lola and now Cindy, both joining us. And with that, we'll go ahead and kick off the conversation again. This week is mental health is the topic. So I'll go ahead and just ask a relatively light question to kind of get us started. So Dr. Herbert, just for the students that are living this Zoom life, is there anything that they can do to kind of decompress for those that are kind of feeling overwhelmed as the test and the workload begins to ramp up?
Yeah. What I'll say first is that, can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. What I'll say first is that this is an overwhelming time in general. So, apart from transitioning the courses to Zoom and, transitioning your life from on campus to online, the world has changed in a moment. It's turned upside down, the world, not just our campus. And so the way in which we knew things, it's just not that way anymore. And so I think that people, really need to be understanding and compassionate with themselves about the fact that this is a different time, a time that I've never seen in my lifetime. Probably most of us have never seen in our lifetimes. And so the adjustment to that is not an easy one. And so on top of that, so we talk about just adjusting to wearing a face mask, and we can't see our families, and now we're having Zoom parties, and sometimes doing other jobs that we didn't intend to do, like myself. And so, and trying to, I usually leave the education to the child to Candy, like that, Corliss, that's not my job. And so now, we're all having to deal with the changes in life. And so school is only one function. Your courses are only one part of your life. They're not your entire life. And so when we talk about the adapting to that, we're talking about just adapting to the understanding that life has changed in general. From there is then when you can start to look at, okay, what is it that I'm going to do now with these online classes? And I know you asked me a short question, I can run on, but I'll say this, is that the way I've seen it lately is kind of in 3 stages. Is like the first, when this all started to happen, the first part was just really shock. Like, what happened? What happened in my life? What is going on? What's true? What's false? should I be coming to campus? Should I be staying at home? Am I at risk? What am I getting the truth of the matter? All the shock about what's happening. And then it started to move to kind of like a grieving, like I lost my life, and it's no longer the way it was. And I wish, I think every day of the places I want to go out and eat and all the things I want to do, I don't even know that I really would do them, but I think every day about them, and so the loss of what you can't have. And from there, and really what was, and that process creates like a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of feelings, because you built your life the way you wanted it, a lot of us, or at least you had a routine that worked, and now you don't. And lastly, I think where, I've certainly found the most peace is kind of accepting like, this is what it is. And from there is when you can start to adapt and find a new routine and find something that fits for you. And so, Christian, when you talk about students and kind of this new platform, I think it's really going to be accepting that life is not going back to the way it was. And that's sad and that's upsetting. And everybody's experiencing the same thing at once. The professors are, the students are, the administrators are, the staff are, everyone is. And so once you can accept that, you can start to build a routine that works for you in this climate.
Nice. And when in building that routine for yourself, is there, how should people go about prioritizing their routine, right? How do you kind of balance the different things that you're currently struggling with to build that routine? Whereas the routine that people normally had, they had years to kind of decide their order of importance.
Yeah, I think that people need to take care of themselves first. Your health, your basic needs, like, am I eating? Am I exercising? Am I healthy? Am I doing things that are right for my family? And do that first. And from there, then you start to look at, okay, the organization of your world, because I think it's difficult to work from home. And so it's hard. The boundaries are unclear. I was talking to a student the other day and she told me, like, I lived in the library. So the library gave her a lot of structure in terms of, she said, I can't concentrate at home. There's a baby crying. There's this going on. And so what you're being asked to do just doesn't even make sense. So this whole idea, like, why would I have my study time in my room when I've never studied before? And, so I think it's trying to start to assess, like, are you feeling okay, number one? And then number two, the reality of what you have to work with. None of us ever thought about studying in our car, but that may be what it has to be, or outside on the porch. Like, it's the new reality of things. And so, because what you have to work with, Christian, may not be what Stephen has to work with, or anybody else, Rashida has to work, or I have to work with. So we have to assess our own strengths and what's before us. And once we understand what we have, then we can start to prioritize what's next, and then start to say, okay, well, I have this exam, then I have this to do, then I have to do this reading, but I also need to make money, and I also need to do, support my family and these other things. Because people can't respect your boundaries if you don't know what they are, or how they should look.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us we in this whole crisis have been waiting for someone to tell us what to do when no one knows what to do. So we'll be waiting forever, and so we have to use our right mind. You have to use your rational mind to come up with what's going to work for you. And that may not be supported by your peers or your colleagues.
Gotcha. And so for the students that are or the people in general that are working on their priorities, right? And specifically for the students, they have people namely professors or some of the staff members that may be dealing with to have, priorities that don't necessarily align, right? So where some people may value the work or the homework that they can be assigned to students, that's not their number one or two, right? So when you need to have that difficult conversation of, hey, we have a different alignment of things during this time, right?
Yeah.
So how do you have those difficult conversations?
I've always been about students having a voice, number one. And, I want all students to understand that we work for you. That's the bottom line. Like as faculty members, we work for you. And it's your right. And, I try to promote, advocate for students and encourage students to speak up for themselves. And no one will know what's happening for you if you don't say what's happening. And and I always want students to, students feel like, oh my gosh, it's my professor. I can't say anything to my professor, as if we don't work for you. There's no school without students. So, none of us are employed. There's no one to educate without students. And this is a dynamic process. And you can't expect your professors to understand what that experience is like for you, because it's not their experience anymore. I don't miss the library because I don't go to the library. I didn't think about how important that was until my student just told me the other day. I thought the library should be closed. No one should be in the library. I didn't even think about it. So on the other side of this conversation is understand, students have to understand that it's your responsibility to inform your professors of, you don't have to get into detail, but of your experience of what's happening in your life. And you're not, obligated to tell your personal information, but you do need to articulate how the professor is making you feel or how it's infringing on what's happening in your life. And that's important. And so to be able to articulate, I don't always have internet access, or I don't always have reliable internet access. And then to be able to feel empowered enough to say, here's what I need from you. I need more time, or I need more support, or I need these things. And at a time like this, I think it's very critical to do, because every person's situation is different. And there's not, so sometimes, in group projects, which I just love, like, students get together and then we kind of create, we all couldn't do it. And you band together as to why the project couldn't get done. But this is not like that. The reason why someone can't accomplish the goal is different for every single person. So I know that it's scary to talk to your professors. And I know that sometimes it feels overwhelming, it's anxiety provoking. And I think that, but I really, really encourage students that if you're feeling stuck, or you feeling overwhelmed, or you feeling like the demands are too much, then you need to give the professor the opportunity to make the accommodation for you. Because that's our job. Like, we don't gain anything from failing you. That's not the way the university, we want you to succeed. They want you to learn, but we want you to get to the finish line. And sometimes students have to remind us of our obligation to do that.
Absolutely, appreciate it. And for the students that specifically feel like they are, battling with moving too much, and they have to keep pace, right? And while we would like to believe that we can move 100 miles an hour, sometimes there may be a moment where we hit a wall, right? So what happens if somebody may hit that wall after trying to adjust so rapidly to the times and the work that they're currently dealing with?
Well, that's where it comes back to the compassion and the reality of the situation. Like, I don't think that people understand the magnitude of what is happening. Like, we have, I remember being on campus one day, I was still like planning to go to Mexico, like on a trip. I was like, okay, well, COVID-19, I don't know what that coronavirus thing is, but I'm gonna go to Mexico. And so then the next week is something different, and the next week is something different. Like, have we really stopped to think for a moment about how our lives have changed in this short amount of time? It's been very, very short from, okay, well, from 50 people can gather to 25 people can gather to 10 people can gather. Oh, no. Actually, nobody can gather. 6 feet different. Wear a mask. Healthy people shouldn't wear a mask. Oh, no. Healthy people should wear a mask. Okay, let's keep all the services open. Oh, no, we got to close the services down. All of this has happened in a matter of, I've lost track of the days, so forgive me, of like a few weeks. And so a part of what, I know that everybody wants answers, but most of all, I really want people to understand that this kind of change is traumatic. Your psyche can't change this rapidly. Like, this is a big deal. And the world has stopped. The world, not just LA. It's not like the riots or something. The world has stopped. And it has all slowed down. And so when you start thinking about it from that perspective, then, after I realized, and I'll share from my own perspective, after I realized this is a worldwide, like this is a big deal, I'm like, well, so what? I didn't get it done. And I mean, and I don't mean to tell students not to do their work, but I'm just saying, like, in the grand scheme of things, really? Is it your health, or is it this assignment? Is it, sometimes you're rushing out. I know that some students this was a couple weeks ago, were rushing out to get to like a Starbucks for Wi-Fi. Well, that's not safe. So, when you start to think about it, I would just challenge people to ask themselves, the wall that I feel like I'm up against, is it one that the system has created for me, or is it one that I'm creating for myself? Because a lot of the struggle that I'm seeing is like a push and pull between wanting things to remain the same and the push and the push and the push for things to remain the same, but they're not the same. So I would evaluate, I would ask students to really, and everyone to really evaluate, like, the question of why. Like, why is this so important? Why do I feel like I'm up against the wall? Why do I feel a sense of pressure? And Christian and I have been talking, and he's like, well, I want my grade and I want to graduate. That's a great why. But let's just understand that there are many routes to a single destination. We can go down 190th, but we can also, go down another street to get to the mall. Like, it's okay. And so sometimes we have to stop and think a little bit about, what are the other avenues during this critical time that we need to take to get to where we need to be, that are the least stressful. So I'm not sure that actually answered your question.
No, it did. It was very helpful. And to kind of expand on that, right? So for the students that have stopped and that are assessing everything, what can they do in that time to recenter, right? To balance out the frustrations or whatever else they may be having while they're taking a moment to pause?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I ask, all of us have those moments in time in our lives where we think like, if I didn't have to work so much, or I didn't have so much school, I would ...
Mm-hmm.
I would read, I would sing, I would listen to music, I would go for a walk, I would work out, I would da 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 da. And I think the exercise, it's a great exercise to go back to that moment and reflect on what you would have done, what you enjoyed doing, prior to this process of school. School is only one stop in one chapter in the book of life here. So it's important to try to figure out what are reconnecting with the things that I enjoy, or I haven't watched this show in forever. I just want to sit down and watch a television show. Whatever it is that brings you a sense of happiness. And the reason why this sounds kind of be happy, don't worry, be happy kind of a deal, but it's deeper than that, is that at a time like this, when all of our sense of control is taken away from us in many ways, we need to infuse happiness into our lives. And we have to do things that are a little self-serving and things that are comforting to ourselves, because it works to kind of offset this feeling that all the things, our other pieces of our life, are taken away. So, to answer your question, just think a little bit about those things that you enjoy. And if you don't know, sometimes people say, well, I've been in school so long, I don't know. Start a show. You don't like it? Start another show. Draw. You can't draw? Okay, do something else. Do something other than ruminating about what you lost. We can feel sad about it, appropriately feel sad about what we've all lost. That's fair. But we have to start to figure out what makes us feel good inside.
It sounds like the stages of grief, Dr. Tiffany.
Exactly. And so as soon as this started to happen, that's a part of, kind of how I organize my thoughts about what's going on with people. Because the more people I start to talk to, I could see them kind of experiencing the stages of grief, because this is a life loss. Sometimes maybe you're sitting and you're thinking, well, I don't necessarily miss this thing, but I do miss these things. And to give yourself some opportunity to grieve that is important for health, So, and what Christian, is talking about is like this desire to just run. But none of us can run on a treadmill like that before we just crash.
Mm-hmm. And really quick, I'll give the Rahab, because I understand she may have a question.
Yeah. For a lot of students being on campus and having being in different affinity groups or clubs, it was like a sense of community. So now not being able to physically be there, and then the programming that's happening online, it's not necessarily working for them to still have those relationships to build community. I'll just ask, how would you encourage students to be able to still feel connected to the campus, to their clubs, to the different things that they had that make them feel like they had a safe space without physically being?
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a dynamic situation, in the sense of, so that changes as the weeks change, right? So 2 weeks ago, no affinity centers were online. And 2 weeks, so the opportunity to connect in that way changed like overnight. And so I think it's back to kind of, you'll notice a lot of my answers are really about understanding yourself, understanding what you need, understanding what kind of connection you're looking for. Some people need to see face to face and have a Zoom, session. Other people don't need to do that. Other people, may need to have a phone call. Some people are just fine with the email. And this really requires, I think I have kind of like a running list of the blessings of coronavirus, because this is one of the things that I think is a blessing, of starting to figure out what actually are your needs and what do I need in terms of connection. But the reality is that we can't get together. You know what I mean? Like we used to. We can't, I'm used to giving everybody a hug. I can't give everybody a hug, And so in that way, we have to understand what feels satisfactory to me. So that's the question I would ask, Rahab, those students you're talking about. What's satisfactory to me? What do I feel like I need? And the moment you start to understand that, then you can reach out to your professors, or you can reach out to your classmates, or you reach out to your friends or your family and kind of say, here's what I need. Are you willing to watch a movie, have a movie session with me? Or is anybody want to have happy hour? Anybody want to do that? Now I can reach out for what I need. And, when I was talking to Michelina about setting this up, I said a lot of what has really shifted is that we always relied on students to walk into our office, you know what I mean? And that was free. So it was kind of like 100 doors of campus. And students got to walk in whichever one they wanted to and be welcome, like, oh, it's great. But now, there's a flip in a way, in that all of our offices are now reaching out to students in a way that I think, number one, might be a little bit overwhelming. It might make it a little less of a feeling that they have the control. Like we relied on students. Okay, well, I'm the women's center. Okay, I can choose to go to the women's center, but the women's center doesn't generally come to me. They might table, but they're not like not knocking on Tiffany's door, so so in that you have to understand, like, just because there are 10 Zoom support deals going on, you need to figure out what's going to work for you. And there may be some trial and error involved in that, and that you try something, you don't like it, and then you try something different. But it's certainly in the lap of the student. You know what I mean? Like, there's something really to say about this student empowerment situation. Like, it's in your hands to figure out what you want.
Gotcha.
For me, I come from like a big family. So like in my house, it's not that much space. And I feel like I have no set place to like, okay, this is where I can get work done. So I know I'm not the only student who's going through that, where sometimes it's harder to get work done because there's so many people around, so many different distractions. And a lot of people are treating the pandemic as like a productivity contest. Like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You have all the time in the world. So it's like, how do you like focus to be able to get those things done, and then also realize, okay, this isn't like a vacation, it's a pandemic. So I'm not actually going to be able to do all of those things.
Right. And so it's sort of why I keep saying about how serious this is, what we're going through, because I think when you can keep that in the forefront of your mind, it starts to center you around reality, because I agree with you, Rahab, is that a lot of people are like, I love the way you put it, a productivity contest, it's like, what are you doing? And I watch it on campus all the time. I've been watching it. Like, it's a great social experiment for me. I'm watching one office do like 10 things, and then another one feel like they have to do they're going to do 11. And then the next one's going to do 12. And then all of us, what we're all going to do? We're all going to do a survey, and we're going to figure it out. It's like madness, So I think is assessing, understanding that this situation is life-changing for everyone. I don't care what your professors act like, it's life-changing for them as well. And so, and number two is back to understanding what you have and what you don't have, and some acceptance of that. And so it's kind of being able to say, I don't have that kind of space. I don't have that kind of privacy. So you may choose to figure out how and when you might use the privacy you have. Because now, it's not just like privacy is now like a $10 bill, like it's valuable. You know what I mean? So do you want to waste it on a Zoom that 150 people are on? Well, I don't know, maybe you do, maybe not. You may choose to use your private time more exclusively. You see what I'm saying? But that's only determined by you and understanding what you have available to you. You know what I mean? Also, sometimes some of the sessions I've done have been like people have been going on a walk. And that's when we've been able to just have a quick chat. No, it's not 50 minutes, but it's okay. 10 is fine. Just going on a walk or sitting in the car, or finding one moment where everyone in the middle of the night when everybody's sleeping, you can have a chat with someone. So I think it's getting creative with what you have. And then like not doling out your time frivolously. So if you know you only have a good hour that can be for you and for privacy or for reflection or for, studying, then you have to figure out how to use that hour wisely. And, a friend of mine was telling me she's a vice principal, and I was saying, oh my gosh, my poor kid's not going to learn anything for this time. My 5-year-old's never going to make it. And so, but she will, I have faith she will. But, she was saying, Tiff, if you could get like a good 2 hours in, you're okay. And so the bar for me went from here to like here. And I'm like, I can do 2 hours. I'm capable. I can do good 2 hours. And then, but Rehab, the other part of it is really understanding that when I can't, I just can't. Because that's okay too. You know what I mean? And so some permission to let go a little bit, and some permission to say, I'll just get back up and try it again tomorrow. And so for you, it's kind of like when you have a big family, you don't get to determine all of that. The family is determining some of that. But you got to be ready to pull the trigger once you know you got the time. Okay, here's what I got to do. Or do nothing, which is okay too.
I had to learn that to be able to do nothing. I remember learning that in my 20s. And I thought it was something wrong if you were doing nothing. You had to be, and a therapist told me once that doing nothing is doing something.
Right. That's right. That's right.
That's my son.
He's like, I'm out of here.
Right. He's like, oh no, she's on a Zoom. They all know.
Yeah, it's right, because this is, if you can steal the time to watch a show or just to sit, you guys are all, students are really, really busy, and you guys have a lot that you're managing, and trying to keep your eye on a bigger prize, on a bigger goal, and to change the shape of your life. And so I think that it's very difficult for you guys to learn to just stop and only do the bare minimum. You only, work smarter, not harder. That's my motto. Like, just let's do what we need to do to get to the finish line, and that may mean, relaxing a little bit more. And that may mean making this thing look differently. And especially in ASI, like, you guys work so hard. You're doing the work of the student, as well as trying to meet your own personal goals. And so you guys have become accustomed to moving at 100 miles an hour. So now, COVID-19 came and told you have to move at 30. Ask yourself, like, am I the one trying to push myself to go to 100, or can I just like chill at 30? And so sometimes, it's a hard adjustment overnight to go from here to here.
And so, in thinking about it, what do the students, right, as people have also had to relocate during this time, what about the people that maybe, didn't have the best relationship with their family or where they currently live, right? And that adds another stress onto what's already happening, right? How do people, or they may be now the one that is making the most money, being that nobody else was able to keep their job, right? In either of those situations, how do you balance that as well?
Yeah, it's tough, you know what I mean? Because you're being asked to do things that you didn't sign up to do, or to fix things that you can't always fix. And I think, I can't stress enough the slow down. When you can slow down a little bit, it gives you a little more clarity about how to problem solve and what needs to happen. And so, what I've seen is that the changes have happened, and people are like, move. And like I just explained to you, like 50 people can congregate, now 25, like, it's changed rapidly. And so we all have like fixed, okay, 25 people, do I have 25? Okay, 10, no, do I have a mask? Wait, when do I wear the mask? Do I wear the mask by myself or not? Like, it's like changing. And so that's nothing like, that's not as serious as what you're talking about, but in a way, it just shows you how you have to stop for a minute and slow down and think. I'm always a big fan of getting a sheet of paper with a pen or a pencil, not your phone, not your computer, to really stop and write option A, option B, option C. Because many times we have a lot of options, but they're not always the ones we want, or they're not always the ones that are in the forefront of our minds. And so I write down options that I don't even want. I just write down every option I could possibly think of in a situation. And it's the same, for like Rehab and talking about space and time and privacy. I think it's the same thing about finances. Write the finances out. You write them with a pen and paper, because cognitively that hits a different part of your brain than typing it. And what it does is it promotes your brain. It gives your brain a little boost to try to figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not, one thing I'll say, no, it's not easy to be at home all together. I call people all week long and make sure everyone's alive in the house. Like, that's not easy, so because we're so used to going apart and then coming together. And so trying to, writing, I think, is always really great, not just writing for logistics and doing lists and things like that, which I love, but also just journaling, taking a moment to journal a little bit of how difficult that is for you, how tough it is to be in a confined space with others. And then once you can do that and you can dump that out of your body and out of your psyche, then you can get to the part of like, what should I do? Okay, so I know that I probably need to start my day every day. I don't, but start my day every day with a walk. I need to walk. And even when I don't feel well, okay, maybe I need to walk so that I can shift the energy a little bit. Or when I see that things are getting a little more tense, okay, maybe that's the time for me to go to walk. There's no harm in walking in the rain. Like, we're not going to melt. It's okay. Or walk around in a circle. Who cares? Like, so, but I respect that everybody's situation is very different, and so people, we're not really meant to be alone. And so it leaves us in a very alone state to figure out things individually for ourselves, because we all can talk, and everyone on this chat today, our situation will be very different. So it's hard to say, whereas like on campus, a piece of our lives were the same. You know what I mean? But now, so I knew that all the time, if it was Friday, a certain Friday, I could go to ASI and I could catch everybody. Like, that's the constant. But now it's not like that. So it's a little anxiety provoking to feel like, wow, it's just me trying to figure this thing out. And I think that once you get that, you can help your family kind of get on board with that. And people can help their family members and their other people around them kind of get on board with, all right, how are we going to impact our system, our little community here, so that it's less tense in its energy? Gotcha. Or if it's tense or anything. Yeah.
And kind of how you mentioned initially, right, with the uncertainty and the fluctuations and the rules and the mask, and you shouldn't wear a mask, and, small gathering, large gathering, no gathering, right? There's also this uncertainty around the end of it, right? So when will this thing end, right? And what sense will it end, right? And all of that, how do you balance, not only adjusting with curveballs in the now, adjusting with the curveballs as far as the end being a moving target as well?
Yeah. Well, the only thing constant is change. So, the only thing, I kind of look at it as control. All of us educated people want to have control. And when we start to lose control, we start to get very anxious. And so I think that it has to start. So back to kind of my original, what I've been saying is like, think about the things you actually have control over now. Okay, well, I can sleep till 9, which I have been. I can, I can actually stay up till 11, which is kind of late for me. I can, like, these are the things that are in my control. And they seem simple, but I think this is a time for really reflecting on the simple things. Because if you can like create a little bucket of all the things you actually have control over, that is where, like, that's your little toolbox. That'll help you buffer you from the anxiety of when, because the reality is, if we think about this, there will be no date that all of us will be able to run the streets freely. Presumably, if we think right, that this will be kind of like a progressive deal, right? One thing will open up, another thing will open up, another thing so we'll gradually ease back in. But there is no one date. Like, we're not in prison. So let's get this straight. Like, we're not in prison, So we still have control over the things we eat, and we still have control over the things we want. Or we have some control. So if you can begin to connect to that, it helps you feel like, all right, this is temporary. I tell myself all the time, like, this is temporary. So let me try to figure out, like, I enjoy, being a lunch lady a little bit. And I going over the ABC mouse like 50 times. Like, okay, I can roll with that.
Not so bad.
It's not so bad because it's not my life for a lifetime. And so it's kind of like the perspective, like, boom, the meteor dropped. This is devastating to our lives, but there's going to be an end. And so it's not going to end in the way we envision. Certainly this is not the way you foresee, like, graduation or things of those, it's not the way we envision it, but it still will end. And, goals will still be accomplished, and life will still move along. So that perspective is really important. And I keep going over that, Christian, because I see a lot of people who are losing kind of touch with reality in a way. Like, we're so worried either about what was, and we're so worried about what will be, that we can't do the work we need to do in the here and now to be prepared for what will be. And so I really just think it's important to have some perspective.
I think, Christian, you had spoke about it right before we broke for this, the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it in the office, and that's probably something good we should share on our social media, the Serenity Prayer, and tell folks, don't worry.
Yeah. But it's not something, everyone that I know who's it's people who are educated are having a really hard time. I'm not saying that people who are not educated are not having a hard time. I'm just saying that there's something about the regimen and the routine that we've created that once it's broken, it's almost kind of like a house of cards. And we're having a hard time, like, regrouping and just going with change. Also trying to understand, like, the type of person you are. If you're a flexible person in nature, okay, well, that, you can probably ride this wave a little bit. But if you're a very structured person, you may want to know that about yourself in order to be able to strategize about how to cope.
I appreciate the insight that you provided. We are running around the 10-minute mark.
Okay.
So just to kind of mind, a little note. And as we close up, right, is there, you've mentioned a lot of things, and most of them, or a lot of them, have been around similar points, right? But as the weekend comes up, and as, the Friday and the Saturday come, and people are assumed to have more time, right? So the schoolwork should not be assigned as heavily. What can they do during these days to kind of take that pause, and while in that pause, what should they do?
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say is, student health and psychological services are still holding Zoom and phone sessions for students. So if if you find that students are in need of therapy services, we encourage them to call our office at 433-3818, and they can still get an appointment to talk to someone. So that is happening. Also, I know that we're teaming up with ASI to do a meditation session with Dr. Wallace, Dr. Bruce Wallace. So I think we're just kind of talking about the date or the filming for that. So trying things like, I say this is a great time to experiment. So it's easy, you know, I find I can watch TV all day long for the entire weekend, you know? And so, and I haven't tried anything. So try yoga, try, you know, maybe you need more TV in your life. Try Netflix, you know, try walking, try writing, try drawing, try coloring, try puzzling, try meditating. You know, if anyone has been to our office lately, we had gotten pretty popular for these puzzles we had in the waiting room. It was just, people would just come by and sit outside my office and do these puzzles. It's just a stress reliever, you know, and try Play-Doh, you know, like we're not too old for Play-Doh, you know, just get back to the basics of the things that occupy, that decrease the feeling of stress and that seem to be fun. You know, I see some students, they like to watch cartoons. They like to draw cartoons, chalk art, you know, like there's a sidewalk everywhere, you know, so, you know, maybe thinking about that. And these are things that you may not characteristically see yourself doing, but there's no harm in trying them, you know, and there's no judgment in trying. But journaling is always a great one as well.
Got you. And really quick, you mentioned the number. Can you repeat that one more time, just so we can make sure that everybody has it?
Sure, the number to our office is 310-243-3818.
Can you repeat it one more time? You broke up on my end. I'm not sure if anybody else received that.
Okay, 310-243-3818.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you know, so with that, I'll see if anybody has any last questions, or anybody wants to end on these specific notes.
I will take one lesson from what I have several lessons from what Dr. Tiffany spoke on. I have written down here to capture for future reference on my own and to share with our students. But the main one was that she said around your responsibility for your experience, articulate how you're feeling in a situation, and articulate what you need. I think our students definitely need to digest that. We need to put that on our social media and have some, you know, how Pam is trying to tell us to slow it down and not say a lot of things. That's a great one to say. And I think I have a couple more, but I thought that one was great. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany.
Yeah, and if you need, you know, access your peers or your colleagues for support in doing that, you know, and how to develop your voice. Like, have a voice. This is the time to have a voice. Understand what you need. Don't rely on your professors to know what you need. You tell them what you need. It's your right, it's your responsibility, and you deserve to be heard. So if I appreciate that, Rashida, because that's the real point that, you know, I was hoping students would take from this is have your voice. We work for you. You tell us what you need. It's our job to figure out how to meet that need for you. And so hold us accountable.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought it was also good. Where are we on time? What Rahab said, the productivity contest.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that term. Somehow, Stephen, we need to get that into social media too. You know, it's not a productivity contest. I think people need to know about that one for sure. I have so many things that she said that were great. I would like you to say just a few minutes. You said all of us educated people like control. What is it about the educated people that like control?
Well, I mean, our lives have been planned from, I don't know, kindergarten. You know, like you go from 1, 2, 3 to 12. Then you go to some kind of college. Then like, it's been the same routine every year, something different. And so sometimes we don't have the ability to be as flexible as others, and because we're waiting for the system has always given us structure. There's
Right.
always a rubric. I didn't have to think about what classes to take. And you know what? And then, so what? I'm going to go get my PhD and then become what, a plumber? Like, no, I want to become a psychologist. Like, so life told me what to do next. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get a job, and then your job tells you, okay, here's your job description. Like, everything is systematic. And so it's difficult in this time when it changes like this for educated people, I think in particular, to kind of tolerate the flexibility, to have some flexibility and some elasticity around that. It doesn't have to be like that. That it doesn't,
Right.
It's because for more years of our life than not, it's been pretty structured.
Right.
So structure is kind of like a safety net.
I thought that was good. I appreciate this, Dr. Tiffany. We're going to have to do this again. I'm sure once this recording, Stephen and his team may be able to like edit this or something. How do you edit a Zoom and then make a whole thing out of it? I'm crafty.
Well, I will say that you guys, I really appreciate you guys having me. This is the only Zoom I have done on campus in this whole entire time. And so
Thank you. Thank
I love
you.
ASI, and I love our students. And if there's, if we want to do this again, I'm on board. And if there's anything you guys need, I'm sort of here. I'm not really here, but sort of here. And I can shoot you in the right direction. But I really appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I guess I'll do the closing. So thank you for those that attended this week's ASI Convo Corner. Again, we did have our special guest, Dr. Tiffany Herbert, for this week's talk about mental health. We will have another Convo Corner next Thursday at 3 p.m. via Zoom like this one. And the topics and special guests will be released at a later date. So thank you for attending. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'll go ahead and clap on everybody's behalf because some of them may be muted. Okay, there we go. And next week's special guest, by the way, is Matt Smith. So some of us may have seen him around campus, and it should be another good one. So thank you.
Good. Thank you guys. Take